Welcome to English course. Hey, welcome back to our channel where we explore everything about the English language. Today, we are going to talk about adverbs of frequency. Adverbs of frequency are an important part of English grammar, as they help us to express how often something happens. In this video, we are going to cover all the adverbs of frequency in English and give you unique examples of each. So, let's get started. Adverbs of frequency tell us how often something happens. They are usually placed before the main verb in a sentence. Here are the adverbs of frequency in English. Always, constantly, regularly, usually, often, frequently, sometimes, occasionally, intermittently, seldom, rarely, hardly ever, never. 1. Always 100%. Let's start with always. It is used when something happens all the time, without exception. For example, I always brush my teeth before going to bed. She always arrives on time for her appointments. They always have lunch together. 2. Constantly 95%. Constantly, used to indicate that something happens continuously, without stopping. For example, he is constantly improving his skills through practice and training. The weather in this city is constantly changing. She is constantly checking her phone for messages. 3. Regularly 90%. Regularly, used to indicate that something happens according to a schedule or routine. I regularly go to the gym to keep myself fit and healthy. The company regularly conducts employee surveys to gather feedback. She regularly visits her grandparents who live in another city. 4. Usually 85%. For example, moving on to usually, it is used to indicate that something happens as a general rule or habit. I usually take a walk in the park after work. She usually eats breakfast at home. We usually go to the gym in the morning. 5. Consistently 80%. Consistently, used to indicate that something happens in a reliable or predictable manner. She consistently performs well in her studies. The athlete consistently trains every day to maintain her performance level. He consistently meets deadlines and produces high-quality work. 6. Often 75%. Next up, often. It is used when something happens frequently, but not as much as always or usually. For example, they often go out to eat on weekends. She often wears a red dress to parties. He often forgets his keys at home. 7. Frequently 70%. Frequently, used to indicate that something happens often, more often than usual. For example, the kids frequently play in the park after school. We frequently visit our grandparents who live nearby. She frequently checks her emails to stay on top of her work. 8. Sometimes 60%. Moving on to sometimes. It is used when something happens occasionally, but not very often. For example, I sometimes watch TV before going to bed. She sometimes takes the bus to work. We sometimes have pizza for dinner. 9. Occasionally 50%. Next, occasionally, it is similar to sometimes, and is used when something happens from time to time, but not regularly. For example, I occasionally meet my friends for coffee. He occasionally travels for work. They occasionally go to the movies. 10. Intermittently 40%. Intermittently, used to indicate that something happens at irregular intervals or in a sporadic manner. The rain was falling intermittently throughout the day. She has been experiencing intermittently sharp pain in her back for the past few weeks. The internet connection is working intermittently, making it hard to complete online tasks. 11. Seldom 30%. Seldom. It is used to describe something that occurs rarely or infrequently. I seldom go to the gym, as I prefer to exercise outdoors. She seldom eats fast food because she prefers homemade meals. The library seldom has new books in stock, so I have to order them online. 12. Rarely 20%. Moving on to rarely, it is used when something almost never happens. For example, I rarely eat fast food, because it's not good for health. She rarely goes to the mall. He rarely misses a deadline. 13. Hardly ever 10%. Next up, hardly ever. It It is used when something happens very rarely or almost never. For example, I hardly ever watch TV. She hardly ever listens to country music. He hardly ever complains about anything. 14. Never 0%. Finally, never. It is used when something doesn't happen at all. For example, I never drink coffee after 3 a.m. She never goes to bed before midnight. He never misses a workout. So, those are all the adverbs of frequency in English. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to learn English grammar with Emmy.